That would be. We will call the meeting to order.
Yes, they did hear you.
We'll call the meeting to order if the board and guests would please rise for the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands one nation indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Good.
Thank you, Treasurer Fiedel. If you would please call roll.
Trustee Mohica,
Here.
trustee Cascarella,
Present.
trustee Brewer,
Present.
trustee Bowen,
Here.
treasurer Fiedel is here, Madam Clerk,
Here.
you have a quorum.
Thank you. It is our pleasure tonight to call up our new chief for a number of badge pinnings.
See here.
Maybe.
First official duty, ceremonial duty.
Good evening. Sorry, we were clearing all sorts of calls, so we were trying to get everybody.
On the job.
Well, good evening to the board, honored guests, and of course, any citizens and visitors. There's a lot of great things we get to do as fire chiefs, and probably the best thing we get to do is swear in brand new firefighters. The second most exciting thing we get to do is recognize people that have stepped up and are getting promoted. It's one thing to honor new firefighters that are going to be running into emergencies when other people are running away. It's a completely next level of appreciation when we start talking about those people that are going to be leading, coaching, and guiding those new firefighters. So if I could have Kelby Libby, Robert Lane, Dustin Hall, Martin Reeder, Andrew Roman, and Robert Schmendinghoff, please come up and stand to my right. We'll figure it out any order. And I'm joined by Assistant Chief John Kaler. Pinning a badge on a firefighter or an officer signifies a formal acceptance into the fire service or marking a significant milestone in their career. It symbolizes their commitment to service, courage, and sacrifice that comes with being a firefighter. Tonight, we'll be doing it during a ceremony where family members or mentors pin their badge on, signifying the community and their team's trust that they place to protect others. This practice is deeply rooted in fire service tradition, signifying the honor and responsibility associated with their role. Kelby Libby is promoted to battalion chief and has served in the fire service since 2007. He's known for being calm and cool under pressure, which is a great leadership characteristic on highly pressurized scenes. His badge will be pinned on by Assistant Chief Kaler as his family is home battling some illnesses, and as soon as I talk with everybody, we'll bring the families up. Robert Lane will be promoted to battalion chief and has served since 2003. He rose through the ranks while finishing all of his college degrees, and he serves as the union president. His badge tonight will be pinned on by Bobby and Danielle, his kids, and Maria, his wife. Dustin Hall is being promoted to captain. Dustin is what I'm told is, I've just been doing this now about a month, is the MacGyver of the fire station and is often seen not too far from a can of WD-40 or some duct tape. His badge will be pinned on by retired battalion chief Funk. Martin Reeder is being promoted to captain and has served since 2015. He's known as a team player who goes above and beyond looking out for his crew. His badge tonight will be pinned on Isabel, Riley, and Adelie. Andrew Roman has served since 2008. He comes from a long line of firefighters. His uncle is the chief in Grand Ledge, used to be the assistant chief here in Delta, and he retired in 30 years. His dad also spent many years here serving on the fire department as well. Tonight, his badge will be pinned on by Madison, Joseph, and Brittany. Robert Schmendinghoff has served since 2017, aside from having as complicated of a last name as I am. He is known for having an infectious, positive attitude, around the station and on scenes, which helps maintain calm and helps get the mission done. His badge will be pinned on tonight by his wife Ashley and his two daughters. I'm going to step aside.
Also, Chief Feichner will be getting his badge today. He's only been here for a month. So Chief Feichner has over 30 years of service, fire service. He returned back to Michigan from Florida to join our Delta team, which we're all happy about. Chief Feichner previously served as chief of the Springfield Township Fire Department for 10 years after serving 20 years as the Farmington Hills Fire Department. His badge will be pinned on by his sons Jacob and Aiden.
We'll see if there'll be any bloodletting. We have a fire department.
At the same. Yeah.
As you spend time.
No, go ahead. Yeah. I'll let Mary to get some good photos. She always does.
Good. As the families are finishing up, I also wanted to take a minute
Merry Christmas.
to recognize Assistant Chief John Kaler, who after Greg Ginnebaugh, your previous chief, retired, led the fire department through that time during all the chief selection process and so forth. So before we give the officers a round of applause, I'd like to recognize Chief Kaler for his good work. Thanks, Chief. And ladies and gentlemen, your new officers. It's ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much.
Thank you. And now it's my pleasure to recognize one of my faves, who has retired, Steve Funk. If you could join me for a minute. I know. Whereas Steve Funk retired November 1st, 2024, after faithfully serving the residents and businesses of Delta Township since February 12th of 2003. Whereas Steve Funk's service and devotion to the township and its fire and EMS operations have proven to be an enormous benefit to Delta Township and its residents in immeasurable ways, all of which have contributed to Delta Township having the best fire department in the region. And whereas Steve Funk began his tenure as firefighter paramedic on February 2nd, 2003, and was promoted with distinction to engineer on September 2nd, 2008. Steve Funk's dedication and leadership led to his promotion to lieutenant on January 14th, 2014, and on June 28th of 2016, Steve Funk was promoted to captain, where he provided his expertise and leadership to the department and his shift. Demonstrating exemplary leadership and commitment to Delta Township, Stephen Funk was promoted to battalion chief on January 8th, 2023. And whereas Steve Funk has demonstrated exceptional leadership and dedication throughout his career, serving as union president and advocating for the welfare and professional development of his colleagues. And whereas Steve Funk is well recognized and widely respected instructor in vehicle extrication, sharing his expertise and enhancing the skills of firefighters across the state. And whereas Steve Funk has been an integral part of the Delta Township Fire Live Fire Training cadre, playing a crucial role in training both new and current firefighters to operate effectively under live fire conditions. Now therefore be it hereby resolved that the Delta Township Board hereby commends the dedicated 21 years of service of Steve Funk to the residents of Delta Township. And be it further resolved that the board hereby congratulate him on his retirement and sincerely offers best wishes for continued success and fulfillment to all his future endeavors, signed by all of the board members. And I have to tell you, as a victim advocate, there's not a person I'd rather be on a call with than Steve. And we've had a lot of them together. And I'm going to miss you and I wish you well. So
Appreciate it.
don't be absent.
Sorry, just.
Real quick, maybe you don't know, due to something out of my control medically, I wasn't ready to retire. But I have to. So I appreciate it. My heart will always be here. And in the job. And with people I worked with. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay. Now I can't see. Brad, we're doing our E-Tran regional coordination plan review, as we've talked about on the board a number of times. I've lost my agenda. We're so fortunate for E-Tran and CATA to be working on a wonderful collaboration. And it's grant funded and we're here to share and that coordination plan, how it kind of functions, answers questions that you have, and kind of bring you up to date on all of that. So Brad, I'll let you go. I've got to find your tissue.
Thank you, Madam Supervisor and members of the trustees. And what a great ceremony. And I'm sorry that they have filtered out. I wanted to congratulate the retired chief. It's very appropriate. My name is Brad Funkhauser from E-Tran, and what a cool act to follow, Stephen Funk. So what you have before you right now is the 2025 E-Tran Regional Coordination Plan, which is really the culmination of over 2 years of work that we've been doing, not only with this body, but also with CATA and most importantly, the employees and the public in this area in Eaton County. You may recall when CATA and I did a presentation to you a little over a month ago, we talked about a survey that was done recently. We also talked about ridership in the connectors that had been put in place, as well as the Route 3 extension and the successes of those. This plan really is the culmination of the work that we've been doing over the last couple of years, leading to next steps. You may recall in October of 2022, E-Tran and CATA entered into an agreement to do a coordination with a couple of objectives. Really, we wanted to address the growing demand, have efficient, reliable, accessible public transportation in Eaton County, particularly in Delta Township, but also explore and really show a proof of concept, whether or not we could start building a regional network between the counties. Next slide, please. How are we going to do this? Well, the fact remains right now that if you combine Ingham County and CATA millages, you're at about 3.6 mills and about 23 million annually on property taxes for that area. You come into Eaton County and it's 0.25. It was designed that way. We've already identified it was designed that way. It is very hard to combine the two networks when you have that disparity in transit funding. Next slide, please. So we went and asked the state partners for pilot money, service development, new technology. We were able to get 2 grants in excess of $2 million for a 3-year pilot where we were able to coordinate not only with Eaton County, but also with Clinton County to do a number of projects. And it's not one size fits all. And so we got to work in October of 2022. Next slide, please. The first thing we did is my other day job board and the E-Tran board sat down and we signed an agreement that would not only allow me to basically go back and forth between the two agencies with separate boards and separate reporting bodies, but also what it did is put in place a board seat on an ex officio board seat on the CATA board to really start to pay that respect across the border. And the E-Tran, outgoing E-Tran board chair, Terrence Augustine, has been serving that role on the CATA board since then. We immediately sat down with the union because one of the things I noticed in the workforce was that they were hiring part-time people at a wage that was not competitive throughout this region. It was broke. A driver with a commercial driver's license in this region, there are only so many of them, and we compete with each other for them and with MDOT and with school bus drivers and so forth. So we can train more, but as you know, the workforce is pulling people in all directions. If your wage is not competitive, they're not coming. So what we did is we negotiated with ATU and we increased the wages and we brought people in full-time with benefits. Now, here's the trick that I love in the transit industry, regardless of what agency you're working for. The state will match a percentage of your operating budget. So as your operating budget grows, especially in the rural areas, so does the match. And that has, over this period of time, been as high as 40%. Then, as promised to this board, requested by this board, let's go talk to the people and the businesses and find out what kind of service they want. Probably the single greatest thing that we needed to do to recapture the confidence between our two boards in these two counties was to begin that dialogue, start over and say, what service do you want? This is your community. So we got to work on that community needs survey, which you have gotten a report on and an update on. Next slide, please. We extended the Route 3 in a ceremony in this room, put in new bus stops, and crossed our fingers. We launched a connector service between Charlotte and Delta Township that starts and finishes with the Route 3 over at the Walmart facility. We introduced Saturday service for all services, and then followed by a connector service to Grand Ledge, which meets up with the Charlotte connector and the Route 3. Before I get to next steps, I want to first, or secondarily, thank this board because it was a change in relationship, giving this the opportunity to be tested and piloted. The second thing I need to do, I get to say this, Andrew. I've been in public transit for 33 years, believe it or not. I don't mean that. I've just been doing this for a very long time. This is one of the most successful launches that I've ever been involved in. It was grassroots based. You have businesses coming to us asking for this service. You have people using this service. And as we said in the last presentation, you have over half of the folks on the Route 3 coming out for employment to your businesses out here. So I congratulate you on taking this risk. Unfortunately, or fortunately, we are in the last year of my contract. We're in the last year of the interlocal agreement. Fortunately, we have had tremendous success on laying down these facets very quickly to prove the concept and then come back to the E-Tran board in November following the election. And we laid out next steps. The grants are going to run out. And while we can probably have grants help offset this or have businesses that are coming into the area help with passes and so forth, the service is funded through property millages. And that is what the CATA board is seeking in their partnership moving forward. So moving forward with the interlocal agreement, in the first 3 years, the discussion between the two boards of directors were, can we set up a process by which we get a new millage proposal on the ballot at some time that would give permanent funding for this relationship? We've identified that through this plan as about $1.3 million. And that would be for the Route 3. It would be for the new rides, paratransit, overnight service that's been launched, that's serving Amazon right now. It would be for capital facilities. It would be for paratransit service in Delta. Now, I offer to you that this is an estimate and what we wanted to do was show you a thoughtful process of how we got here, itemize the cost for this on an ongoing level moving forward, and then come up with options which are varied. It doesn't need to be that amount. We think that that is probably the annual cost for robust urban transit service, which is a blend of large bus service as well as the connector service, and potentially Trustee Brewer and I were speaking with the senator-elect the other night, and one of the topics that came up was Delta being really the pivot point in the region right now between the airport, Clinton County, a lot of the new businesses coming in, and downtown Lansing. And so the future is bright on things that we could do. The millage for the E-Tran renewal right now specifies that millage is set only to go to E-Tran. What we've explored with the E-Tran board is to have that open up to public transit. Doesn't mean it would go to CATA, doesn't mean it would go anywhere else. What it would do is give the flexibility that could be used for public transit. And I would offer to this board that any public transit millage you put out there would not be specified for any one entity. It would be to the goals that you have set and the successes that you've seen here. We just happen to be in the business of producing this urban service and being able to do it very efficiently. There's been a lot of talk about representation on boards of directors and entities and how to do that. Next slide, please. In addition to Delta, then E-Tran would potentially be seeking help from the county in a millage or general fund contribution of about $700,000, and then Grand Ledge funding expiration would be about $200,000. Essentially, we've got to double the E-Tran budget to be competitive, both in the urban area and the rural area and its connections. And those next two lines basically are the same as the previous slide, only for the county and Grand Ledge to enter into agreements if we wanted an umbrella over all agencies. Next slide. That's what I thought. Thank you. So the last comment that I have for you is the reason I'm here tonight is that the E-Tran board took this up in committee and then took it to the full board and voted 7-0 to use this as a blueprint moving forward. Does that mean this is the plan? No, it means that we intend to move forward toward this plan and continue to have conversations with boards like yours, Eaton County, Grand Ledge, even some of the other communities, and CATA. I'm excited because while this may not be the exact plan that you go with, I offer to you that in the 30 years that you've had this relationship in this region, I believe you have a real shot at moving forward in some fashion with what we've laid out here as this partnership. Those are my comments, Madam.
Thank you, Karen.
Hi, in this right here, for what we have in our packet, it's if you can explain just a little bit the service development and technology grants, like what do those propose? What do those do? And Also, there seems to be an app, a transit mobile application. I guess I didn't know that you had one.
Yes, thank you. Great questions. So quite simply, on the first page, on the
Right.
background page, it talks about the two grants. This is the seed money that we went to the state to do this pilot, which preceded the E-Tran board and the CATA board coming together and saying, okay, how are we going to spend this money? So over the last couple of years, we've been running the Route 3. That's been paid for through this grant. We've also paid for Clinton Transit to bring service, not knowing what service they need. They've been doing a number of trips. You've seen their buses around, and we are in conversation with them about having a similar process. To answer your question, those two grants were the 3-year pilot project, which is going to be ending in September. The second question you had on the transit app. Transit app is an interesting thing. We didn't develop it. In fact, the transit app works anywhere in the country. If you go to New York, Washington, DC, and it's based on an AVL located. If you order from DoorDash, you can watch the vehicle come
Yeah.
in. It's the same technology. It's everywhere. And the way that that's done is that we as an agency or DoorDash as a driver will send a signal out. And so what we did is we put AVL, automatic vehicle location systems, on all our buses so that you can track them. So that then you go into the transit app. We're not in the app business, so it's already there. In fact, I've been in Europe and it's the same app. You can go to Ann Arbor, Detroit, Chicago. We felt because that the connectors were really fixed route, they really are. They're on a timed basis that people can count on. And we wanted to raise the public's expectations of where the bus is, just like the other day, and I'll be frank with you, anytime I order from DoorDash, I get on the app and I'm watching them come in and, hey, don't put them there. It helps, when people are waiting for the bus, you'll see them on the curb and it's the same thing only with technology now.
Right.
That's, okay. And that's what the transit app does. So
Okay.
the two connectors, they carry around a bag right now because it's temporary. And the gentleman there in the tie is the brains behind this. And what happens is he named these routes in our system, the 80 routes. So they've already been put into the regional transit network. So you can plan a trip from either Charlotte or Grand Ledge, anywhere in the CATA system, and it will tell you which buses to get on and off and to transfer.
Oh, that's nice. Okay.
It's cool.
Thank you. Yeah.
Andrea.
Yeah, can you help me understand a little bit some of the numbers? Because you talked about the grant funding and we've got the pilot. That's, I think you mentioned a 3-year pilot that has been operating. I know you presented previously, incredibly successful. I'm thrilled with that. You know, that's, I think it was about 2.3 million total, all said and done with that pilot funding. What you in your presentation were suggesting with Delta, I think being the bulk of millage to generate revenue for ongoing, you know, the continuation of these services, it's almost 2, you know, another couple 100,000 if Grand Ledge should participate as well and elect to do that. But so almost the same amount annually as what we had funded for a 3-year pilot. So help me understand the difference and where these numbers, and are we expanding, so you proposing expanding service beyond what the pilot was? Why the difference in those
Absolutely.
figures?
And thank you for the question. We did this on the cheap. We did this on the cheap. And I believe we ended up putting more service on the Route 3 than anticipated to make it successful. So in addition, anytime you put fixed route on, we're required to have SpecTran service, which is the ADA service on a boundary around that. So that comes with it. It's great service, but it's duplicate service. So you've got small buses like this, and then you have small buses like CATA out there. You don't need both of those. So that could be reallocated, but I'm careful to say that because we don't want to dismiss some of the longtime drivers like Joe, who's been doing the Delta service for 30 years. We don't want that. So we've got to figure out how we blend the two. But the answer to your question is that we just this month started the overnight service to Amazon with the ride service. And we haven't even publicly launched it yet. So we expect that cost to be several $100,000 a year. The estimate is really to have good service for this urban community going out and connecting with the other communities. Even a conservative amount is about $1.3 million, and that's like a 0.75 mil. And that's what the estimate was done on. So it is the Route 3 extension. It is the paratransit service. It is the ride service. It is calls we get to say, hey, can you do service to a third shift of GM? We haven't looked at it yet. So it would be difficult, I think. Is there a buffer in there? I wouldn't necessarily say a buffer because as we get into some of the efficiencies with CATA, you're not going to pay the full freight for the 3 because there's going to be connections there. So there's a whole nother chapter of negotiations, but we are, I went back looking for more money and still looking for money, but it is, we did it on a very slim budget.
Thank you.
Fonda.
Thank you. Thank you for this proposal and the success of the pilot. And I kept thinking, oh, I think we're getting nearer and nearer the end of this. But it has been good for people coming into the community. My thought is, or question is there an opportunity to include businesses in
Yes,
paying some of this?
yes,
Because some of
Yes.
these big factories it's creating a real opportunity for their employees to get to and from. So I was just wondering if there's been conversations for a partnership, a collaboration.
we work regularly with LEAP. We work with the economic development branches of the county and the township, even in Lansing coming out. I would answer it this way. The challenge we have is everyone should have skin in the game. So have we had conversations with them? Absolutely. There's a lot of pressure to give things to businesses to get them into a community. We believe that there is a way to do both where we can offer service, but also have them help pay for passes in the future. So is there a way? Yes. Our challenge here today, moving forward, is this. We have always had a 0.25 mils on the budget and looking at that. And so I believe businesses, I believe this board, I believe the county, I believe Grand Ledge, everyone should have skin in the game. Do we work toward that? Absolutely. I think we have an enormous amount of possibilities ahead of us. My challenge to you is that we need something from somewhere, and that's so have the businesses written us a check? No. Have we asked for partnerships? Absolutely. And we're getting there, but it's, if you don't mind me saying so, it's kind of like the shelter at Walmart. It is this community as the permitting agency that I need to say, we want transit in this community and we're going to do that. And I'm right beside you.
Thank you.
So our goal is that we start, kicks off a more serious conversation with us as a board for what do we want? We know what's possible. The success of Route 3 has been absolutely phenomenal. And when we ask for why are people on the bus, we got those answers by individual conversations with those people. And I was very, very pleased to see how many people were coming into Delta to work. And so then we'll build from that, but we'll have a lot of discussion in the next few weeks and months. Yes.
Thank you. Well, I want to compliment you, focusing on a vision through cloudy glasses, your constraints that you have that you
Took 'em off.
mentioned, we can only realistically do what the community as a whole is willing to invest in. And obviously that's the key. And there are different constraints of different communities and their ability or their willingness to fund an existing or a new service. And it's especially when you partner that have been somewhat individualized through an isolated community for all that. So, I applaud what you've done. And I think it's probably the best vision and plan that could possibly be presented, given the constraints within the area. And you've done a very, very thorough job and also being sensitive to those limitations as well. And it's going to take a real effort of regionalism here. And you mentioned LEAP, but there has to be the inclusion and support of other regional stakeholders as well.
Sure.
And, the Chamber of Commerce, for example, because they aren't just limited to the city of Lansing.
Right.
And so, I applaud you coming to the boards and presenting this as a starting point. And I just think the more discussions we have individually with your leadership and the individual communities, but also the regional stakeholders as well, I think there's a good likelihood that this has a possibility of gelling, coming together. So thank you for your presentation.
Thank you, sir. If I could make one comment. One vision I see moving forward is not myself or Cata coming and advocating for this. What I see is a community network of Delta businesses and residents and the chamber coming forward and saying, we want to support this and we're the facilitators. But I hear you and I accept that challenge, sir.
All right, very good. Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you. We will continue.
Thank you.
This is the start, not the finish line. So,
Great.
okay. Thank you very much for coming. I appreciate all of you. Something has come up and Mr. Worthy is not able to be here. So, we'll move on down to the MLK celebration. And Fonda, would you like to address that?
Certainly. I'm looking for, is there a resolution or something here?
There is, if you click
Okay.
on just the blue, it would bring it up.
Yeah. Okay. Hold on one second. I apologize. Okay, there it is, right in front of my eyeballs.
Fonda, for the benefit of all of you in the audience, Fonda is on the Martin Luther King Commission. And has been for, I don't know, 2 or 3 years. I know you've been active as a committee member, but you're now on the commission, so.
Years. Okay, it says, whereas for 2025, the Greater Lansing Area Martin Luther King Jr. Holiday Commission has adopted the theme of I Have a Dream that one day this nation will rise up and live out the true meaning of its creed. We hold these truths to be self-evident that all men are created equal. For its 40th annual day of celebration on January 20th, 2025. And whereas Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., an American clergyman and prominent activist, led this nation in a nonviolent civil rights crusade during the 1950s and 60s to obtain social, political, and economic equality for African Americans and all oppressed people. And whereas Dr. King's courageous leadership, service, and clarity of vision changed our nation forever. And whereas due to the efforts of many dedicated people who believe Dr. King deserves national recognition, the third Monday in January is nationally recognized as a day to remember Dr. King, his legacy, and the causes for which he is so gallantly fought for and died for. And whereas Dr. King's life will always shine as a light for those without hope and as an example to be emulated by all who care about their fellow human beings, regardless of race, religion, class, or nationality. Now, therefore, be it hereby resolved that on this 16th day of December, 2024, the Delta Township Board hereby honors the memory of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. in appreciation of the many accomplishments he made. Be it further resolved that the Delta Township Board encourages all residents to celebrate and promote Dr. King's values of rich culture and ethnic diversity and continue to work for the day when the dignity and humanity of every person is respected. I so move.
Support. It's been moved and supported to adopt the resolution. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. And we are messages. At the agenda now, if, I would take a motion to adjust, is that here?
Yeah, I move to approve the agenda as presented.
Is there support?
Support.
It's been moved and supported to accept the agenda as presented. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. You have a number of communications from various projects that we have underway. Also, I would like to bring your attention to the road commission proposals for the millage. I think we're in maybe starting. Jake could tell me, I think we have 2 more years, 2025 and 26 on that millage, so. Then moving on down, public comment. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to speak to something on the agenda or of community interest?
David Howell, 9487 Guinea Road, Delta Township. Before I get started, I also want to express my appreciation to all of our first responders, our police and fire and paramedics. Delta Township wouldn't be what it is without them and their service. So I thought that was a really cool ceremony with their families and everything. What I wanted to speak about for a minute is, if I can get my notes together here, I copied too much stuff. Okay, on the, we didn't mention it, but on the Ultium 3 project, the elephant kind of in the corner is the fact that recently General Motors said that they were ending their partnership with the South Korean company that owns the other 50% of the Ultium 3 plant. So I don't need an answer now, but my question for the board, would be what losses are anticipated by Delta Township in 2025 and years forward, since General Motors has announced that they are withdrawing from the partnership? I assumed that Delta Township was going to be receiving or had projected for some future tax revenue. I'm just curious as to, what General Motors' decision, how that's going to affect the township finances. Second thing is, I went through, believe it or not, the township sign ordinance. And that's quite an ordeal, because that sign ordinance just goes on and on and on and on. But what I would say is, from my reading of the sign ordinance, it looks like during the political season, when candidates are putting out signs and whatnot, that political candidates would have to, they come under the classification, I guess, of temporary signs, because political signs was eliminated in the new draft ordinance. So some of the new proposals are really very restrictive. You have to obtain a permit, a maximum of 5 permits, authorizing display of a temporary sign for 9 consecutive days. And then the beginning of the display period, like when you can put out political signs, shall not be more than 14 calendar days from the date of issuance of the permit. So it just seems like that's very restrictive, especially when it comes to a non-incumbent challenger challenging an incumbent. And what it does is it forces a challenger to spend money on direct mailings because a challenger doesn't have the name recognition that an incumbent has. And if my memory serves me correctly, the 4 trustees that recently ran, according to your campaign finance records, you didn't spend anything. You didn't spend any money at all.
Yes.
Okay. Maybe some money, but I don't know. It's probably was a very small amount. So looking at that, I would consider that to almost be like a form of voter suppression. And as I said, it's designed to make a challenger go out and spend money. The last thing that I was going to mention was in the blueprint from the gentleman from CATA, where he talked about the 0.25 mil increase. This is a really bad time in Delta Township to be proposing new millages, especially when Eaton County is probably going to come back later on in a few months and ask for a 3 mil increase. So I don't know that the voters would reflect very favorably on a new millage at this time. Thank you.
David, we'll be discussing the sign ordinance more. I mean, it's just being introduced now, so stay tuned and you'll get some clarifications on your issues. Anyone else? Okay, I'll take a motion.
No, one more.
Oh, yes, sir. Hello, Donna.
My wife and I decided that, well, maybe it's time to say something. We've been under an austerity budget now for 1.5 years. And we looked at this coming year, we're looking at probably selling one of our 2 vehicles. She's still working at 72, and I guess I am too. But we viewed the county millage might be coming again, is that correct?
Well, I can't speak for the county. None of us here can speak for the county, so I can't answer that. You'd have to go. They're meeting us next Wednesday or this Wednesday.
Okay,
Sorry.
all right. And yet we'll have a jail with no sheriff's office, perhaps because of it. So they look at the example of the jail, they say, well, we got it voted down. Well, then propose it again. Got voted down. Well, propose it again. It passed. So then we built the jail. I'm looking at the bank drain finally going through. And I understood why now, because Delta Township putting in $500,000 a year for 30 years. I'm going, but where's the money going to come from if we have all these other projects going on? Well, we'll have a property assessment increase of how much? Not going to ask you to pinky swear on it, but has there been a property tax increase proposal of 5%?
Last year,
Okay, moving on.
that's statewide.
That's why that $500,000 will wash, and it really won't cost the township to improve because of the drains that much more. And then having 8 houses in the drain assessment area, I get to help pay for it. So I spoke to a lot of the people who own multiple family dwellings. 18 to 8. And they were pretty pissed when they heard about the pilot program. So they said, well, gee, if you want to talk to my individual renters, I know it's not normal, about who should be maybe elected or talk about the candidates, you go right ahead. And you have my complete permission because I'm pissed. And I said, well, let's see. 1971, you built your first building, right? Yeah. Okay. And you got no tax abatements. So we're starting to add things up here because I'm looking at 11% for our water, 5% for our property tax assessment. We're going to have E-Tran again. And that means, and I used to love E-Tran. I used to ride the bus. And I would go with the wife and the kids of convicts who I was looking for that skipped our bond. And they were perfect because they didn't suspect. And I stepped off the bus and cuffed and stuffed them. I love buses. Never ride them. So all this.
If you
I'm
could
getting a
wrap it up,
2%.
Dennis.
I'm finished. 2.5% COLA this year. And I can't see the taxes going up that much more. If you get a cost of increase, the amounts we're looking at, and I get 5% and all these other increases, nah, not in my watch. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? I will entertain a motion regarding the consent agenda. Fonda,
I move the consent agenda as presented.
is there some?
Just introduction of ordinances.
Oh, sorry,
Sorry, Mary.
I did. I just said we were gonna do it too. So we'll hold that thought. We do have an introduction for the sign ordinance rewrite that I just talked to David about. Sorry about that. And I will entertain a motion on Dennis.
Yes, Madam Clerk, I move that Delta Township Board introduce amendments to Chapter 32 signs of the Delta Township Code of Ordinances. The Township Clerk is hereby directed to advertise this introduction in local newspapers with final consideration on the proposed ordinances amendment scheduled for the January 6th, 2025 Township Board meeting.
Support.
And it's been moved and supported to introduce the sign ordinance. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Oh, sorry. Discussion. I thought we already had it with David. All right. Aaron, would you like to explain that, please?
We did talk about this fairly recently at the December committee of the whole meeting. One of the suggestions at that meeting was to go back through the sign variances and to make sure that we were incorporating any of the commonly discussed or addressed issues at the Sign Board of Appeals. And one of the things we noted was that there were, on our very large industrial parcels, a pretty common request to have multiple ground signs when they have a lot of road frontage to help direct their staff to know where the multiple entrances are. And so that change was incorporated into the update. One of the questions raised this evening was about the temporary signage. So as the board knows, when that Supreme Court decision was made, it was actually made around temporary signage. So the town in question regulated their temporary signs differently from one another. So if you were having a event, you were regulated differently than other types of temporary signage. So the Supreme Court found that there has to be an overriding interest for the government to start regulating things based on content because there's some free speech involved. And so what we've done in this ordinance is an attempt to comply with that Supreme Court decision by making sure that our sign regulations are as content neutral as they reasonably can be. And so our current ordinance does regulate our political signs differently than, say, a grand opening event sign. So if a business has a temporary sign out front that says sale on burgers today, it's regulated differently than a political sign. And that from everything we can find from our legal advice, that's not advisable. And so we've wrapped it into what we just call event signs. Now, to clarify, those signs are exempt from permitting. So there would not be any limitation on the number of signs other than for the size of them, which our current ordinance does regulate the size of our temporary signage. So I hope that helps clarify that there is no permitting process involved in any type of temporary signs like a political sign. There are some very limited requests for permitting. We're talking about like big banners on a grand opening. But by and large, temporary signage is exempt from permitting, including political signage.
Thank you.
But what about the time limit then for temporary signs?
So all of our temporary event signs, including political signs, we ask that they be removed within 14 days after the event.
So the event in this case would be the election.
Correct.
Thank you.
Correct.
Fonda?
Is there a time in which you can put it out before the election? So that's still open.
That is still open. And they do have to be like out of the public right of way, but those are all regulations that currently exist as well.
Any other questions? Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Erin.
We'll put it in the paper and take it up January 6th, so. So we have a motion. I'm looking for a second for the consent agenda.
Support.
Commissioner Fito, would you please call?
Trustee Brewer,
Yes.
trustee Cascarella,
Yes.
trustee Bowman,
Yes.
trustee Mohica.
Yes.
Treasurer Fito is a yes. Madam Clerk?
Yes.
Yes, you have 6 affirmative votes.
Thank you. Perfect. We have a number of things under new business. My agenda is gone again. So we will, start with, the east-west pathway in Sharp Park. Renovations. Woody, are you speaking to that, or Marcus, or Jake? Or all of you?
Or none of you.
I don't know.
Good evening. I think I've met everyone, but I'm Woody Isaacs with Veritas Design Group. We're the design consultant for the project.
Well, you all know me, Jake Finance, Township Engineer. What's in front of you all today is a recommendation for award for the contractor that bid on the project for the Sharp Park renovations. Just to summarize the renovations, we are going to demolish the pavilion there that is deteriorating. There's definitely some rotting going on and insect infestation going on there. So we will demolish that, build a new pavilion, add a new restroom facility right next to that pavilion with drinking fountains, and enhance the pathway system from that point to the existing facility building that's there to the north. Right now, that's an unpaved section of pathway. In addition to that, the beach volleyball courts will be repurposed for a new playground facility, and this contractor will prep that subsurface for the new playground equipment that will go there under a separate contract. Woody and I did interview the contractor, the low bid, and with that, it's Lau's Construction that we are recommending for award today. And we're open to any questions.
Questions, Beth?
How long have we been waiting on this project?
Oh, it's a grant. It was 2019, 2020?
So, okay, 4 or 5 years. Thank you.
Yes. Yeah.
No, nobody uses the volleyball courts.
Marcus, can you speak to that?
There's some use, but those are gonna be relocated as part of the stuff master plan. We also have courts that, no, I'm sorry, Grand West Park that'll be used.
So those are in place now. I don't remember them.
Delta, I mean, Grand Woods?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so they're there. Okay. All right, thank you.
Any other questions? If not, a motion, please. Andrea?
I move that the Delta Township Board accept the bid from Low Construction for the East-West Pathway and Sharp Park renovations project in the amount of $924,500. I further move that funding an amount not to exceed $1,027,800 be allocated for the project, and that the township manager be authorized and directed to execute the construction contract documents and any other necessary contract documents to support the construction of the aforementioned project.
Support. Karen has supported. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. So whoever's staying for the next, Willow Lift Station, and the force main, project for Pepper Ridge.
Yeah, and I may have Rick come up here and join me on this one. Rick, I'm gonna let you kick this off, talk about the history of Willow and Pepper Ridge.
Good evening, board members and supervisor. We started studying Willow Lift Station service area clear back in 2018, 2019, if not just a little before that. We've always had capacity restraints. Part of that study through OHM advisors, we determined that we could do a moderate pump upgrade, in which we did. And that created about 600 REUs, and we worked through those pretty quickly. We have, over the years, we put out a full new lift station design. And in part of that design, we determined that we also needed either a larger or a parallel force main to reach full capacity. After we performed the Altium design and parallel force main, we found that if we do a parallel force main up in front of the lift station as opposed to after, we would gain a significant amount of RUs. And when we looked at it a little closer, we decided that if we put the parallel force main and put that in now, it gives us not only some significant RUs, it also gives us a lot of resiliency and reliability. This force main is over 2 miles long. It goes under I-96. It goes along Grand River. So having an additional parallel force main really gives, lets this utility guy sleep at night. If there's a failure, we have a backup. So it made sense to do this in front of the actual lift station. Our current pressures and development pressures on that side of the highway, this should get us through those and a little bit of a cushion. So it just made sense to do this in front. When we first started, where we could receive that grant, we were very early on in the design of this. And so we come up with the number of $10 million. As we got deeper and deeper into the design, we were able to fine tune our numbers. And that's where we allowed, hey, we are going to have some other dollars left. And that's where we went back to the state and said, hey, can we do another project that would still fall within, we would not ask for more money, but it would fall within the allowed money. And that would also get a significant RU and bang for the buck. And that's where we introduced the Pepper Ridge force main work. And that actually, by doing that, we're actually touching 4 other sewer districts. This obviously the Pepper Ridge lift station and development along the north side of the Delta crossings. It also allows us to free up capacity at Market Drive lift station, which is south of Saginaw and between the highway and Broadbent, which is a big undeveloped parcels there. Also, this frees up our Carrier Creek, which is our huge trunk sewer. So it really gets a lot of bang for the buck. And we're very pleased that this is all going to fall within the same grant.
Rick, can you please, for the benefit of our audience tonight, explain an RU briefly?
An RU is a resident equivalent unit. And currently, anything that uses, a flow is going to be in GPM in our language. There's other languages like cubic feet per second and whatnot, but we look at it as gallons per minute. And one RU is 225 gallons per minute. So as housing developments or industry or even a household, when they connect to our system, they're going to tie up RUs. It's just a measurement of volume. And it's right now our equivalent is about 225 gallons.
Gallons per day.
Yep. I'm sorry. Yep.
And I think another kind of clarification on that as well is one residential equivalent unit is equivalent to one single family household. So the standard is, well, not one single family household, but one individual, the usage of water that one individual will have at any given day. I believe our standard household is 2.3 or 2.2 individuals per household. So about 100 gallons per day, 225 gallons per day for a standard household.
So the RUs are how we determine whether or not there's capacity when someone's looking to develop a new project. Dennis, you had a question?
Yeah, so this bid before us earmarks, or I would say is going to spend 7.8 million of the 10. Is there a plan for the remainder of the grant money?
Yeah, a lot of the design, and that's the 7.8 is basically just for the construction.
Okay.
We did have the design for the last 2 or 3 years, and geotech permitting. So it kind of covers all that. And pretty much by the time we get through with permitting, design, utility, geotech, it's pretty much used up.
You're saying we're gonna spend every penny of that, right?
So that 10 million is ARPA money that we received from the state.
Right.
Yeah, I think so. Engineers' estimates came in about 8.3 million for construction only. So we had a favorable bid from the contractor coming in around 7.8. Again, as Rick had mentioned, we'll cover the engineering fees, the design fees associated with these projects, as well as construction phase services. I believe in the memo, I had indicated that we will be coming to the board in the winter months for construction phase services for Pepper Ridge, as well as the geotech that we need to retain for both of these projects.
Great, thank you.
That 10 million will cover.
Fonda?
Just a question on, you talked about capacity. I know that Delta Crossing, I believe in one of their phases, is going to expand housing out that direction. Will this be impacted? Will it be impacted, the system, when they expand housing into that direction?
Yes.
It might be a capacity issue.
Anything beyond phase 2 required a Pepper Ridge lift station's force main separation. Now, parts of Delta Crossings does go south to Market Drive lift station. Part of the northern part would go to Pepper Ridge lift station. So either one, since Pepper Ridge and Delta Market currently share a force main, either development and either service district would require the separation to free up capacity.
So with that, to kind of build upon that, is the Pepper Ridge relocation project does allow the full build out of the Pepper Ridge sewer district, which that portion of Delta Crossings, I believe you're referencing, that's north of phase 3, what's known as the Bass Pro site, is a part of that district.
Great, okay. That's what I wanted to know. Thank you.
Beth, did you have a question?
No, I'm ready to make a motion.
Okay, does anyone else have questions before we do that? Go ahead.
I move that the Delta Township Board accept the bid from Sorensen Gross and award a construction contract for the Willow Parallel Force Main and Lift Station improvements and Pepper Ridge Force Main relocation schedules A, B, and C respectively, and the amount of $7,840,351. Further, the township manager is hereby authorized and directed to sign and execute all necessary contract documents on behalf of Delta Township.
Support. It's been moved and supported to issue the contract. All those in favor by signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries.
I have one last comment. Thank you
very much. This is the culmination. I believe this was introduced 2 years ago. Ernie started this out, brought this plan to us, said we've got to do something. You worked to plan this, and this is fantastic that we got this appropriation, that, you know, we found the money and that we're going to do this. And it just supports the growth of our community. And thank you very much. And it shows that our staff is just amazing and looking forward and planning for things. We appreciate that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next, the Delta Center Cemetery, improvements, Woody and Jake.
Mary, you don't want to speak to this?
Just give me a moment, I will. I'm giving you the floor first.
Yes, so we did review bids for this project. We had a lot of interest in it. And we're recommending award to Levitt and Stark, who I think in the memo, it's noted that we've worked with before. They're a local company that we feel can do a good job for this project, and happy to answer any questions.
Questions? Wanda?
Levitt and Stark was not the lowest bid.
Correct.
Can you explain that to us, why you're going with the second to the
Sure
lowest bid?
can. You'll see in the report that a company called Lopez Concrete Construction was the apparent low bidder when bids were open and read. And there were a few discrepancies in terms of they did not supply the backup information that was requested to be submitted with their bid. When we did our post-bid interview with them, we again requested that information. This was material demonstrating to us that they could complete a general construction contract of this scope and magnitude. They weren't able to supply that information. And then lastly, it came to light that there was some communication happening during the bidding period that was outside of the scope of where communication was supposed to be, I guess is where I would leave that. But they communicated apart from the protocol that we had spelled out in the contract.
Thank you for explaining.
Trustee Brewer, just to elaborate on that as well, is that communication we had determined did impact their bid. And so that's why we had to disqualify their bid, was because of that component. And this is why we are leaning on Levitt and Stark now. I think luckily as well, the number of bidders that we had on this project was phenomenal. And Levitt and Stark, between Lopez and Levitt and Stark, there was a separation with them compared to the other bidders. So it's not a significant cost difference there as well.
So it was, and Lopez has done they've done some sidewalk work for us. And that, so you've probably seen their name before. This was just a little, they were venturing a little broader than what the core, I think, of what they do. So they will probably continue to bid sidewalk work for us and be considered.
Yep.
And they also are doing the foundation for the columbarium, in columbariums. So any questions about this project?
No.
If not, I'll
You
entertain.
want to move it?
Yeah, I have to bring it up.
They're not working.
I know, it's going in and out. I move that the Delta Township Board accept the bid from Levitt and Stark for the Delta Center Cemetery Improvements Project in the amount of $399,250, and that the township manager be authorized and directed to execute the contract documents for the aforementioned project. And support?
Support.
It's been moved and supported to execute this contract. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, thank you very much, gentlemen. And we are now down to the public meeting calendar, which we are required by law to post annually when we post it in December. And then we can make adjustments to it during the year where necessary, but Brian, is the memo from you or from me? I don't even know.
It's from me, Madam Chair. Yes, it just presents all the calendar of meeting dates for the year ahead. Two things that I want to point out. The last few years, we've consistently canceled committee of the whole meetings through the summer. So I took the liberty of being kind of preemptive this year and taking those off the list. I have had some board members have asked me in the past whether or not we need a committee of the whole meeting. I have left those dates on there, but I left room in the memo for a discussion on that. If we do have the committee of the whole section at each of our regular meetings, with our project, load and staff time, it's been hard to, usually in the past, we've had, several just policy discussions that we'll have at the committee of the whole meeting, specific to that. We've not been able to prepare a lot of those things. So I put it, a discussion point in the memo if the board was willing to have that discussion or wanted to have it. Otherwise, I have left the rest of the committee of the whole meetings on the calendar of meetings.
So, Dennis?
I go either way, but I mean, if we keep them, for the other dates besides the summer, I mean, if there isn't any relative, information that we need to discuss as a policy, it can just be canceled.
We can't cancel. I think we're just looking at not posting meetings and then canceling. I mean, do we?
Yeah.
Do we need those meetings or are we? Where I said, are we willing to spend another 30 minutes at our regular board meetings if we need for expanded more times for committee of the whole discussions? And obviously, we can always also call a special meeting. I think the issue more is letting staff know prior to Thursday or Friday before the meeting that we're canceling. So.
Well, and that's my question. What would staff prefer? Would you prefer that we just do 2 meetings a month? Would that make it easier on staff?
I can't speak for all staff, but I would say that, again, with our workload the last couple years and as I can foresee the next couple years, it would be easier. It takes one meeting agenda off of the plate because it is quite a bit of work. The committee of the wholes aren't as much, but helping consolidate that into 2 meetings a month is a little bit easier to have those discussions.
Fonda, did you have?
I like the idea of not having the committee of a whole separate meeting, but including it, like we typically have done a lot lately, including it in our board meeting. If that is the intention of the full board to move in that direction, do we then have the 2 board meetings back to back? Or do you skip a week in between? I don't know if you need the prep time to do. So I wanted to just bring it up while we're having this discussion.
Well, on that point too, not only does it allow prep time to alternate, to have the board meetings, have a week in between, but it avoids a big gap from one board meeting to the next on the back end of that each month.
Yes.
So I think that's, I wouldn't recommend.
I agree. I would recommend that we stay first and third for board meetings, and then it just would free up. Like tonight, there's nothing on committee of the whole. And if you go back and look at agendas, there frequently isn't because our agenda is full and we've discussed things. I think we use committee of the whole in this meeting where it's appropriate, but it easily could absorb. Most of our board meeting agendas could absorb committee of the whole discussions.
I agree.
Anyone else have a question? Would
I
you?
would just say, yeah, the first and third would be preferable just because we do have the bill payments, which is important to stay on schedule with those.
Right.
And not go too many weeks in between.
So, I would entertain a motion to, do, the calendar with, that would include all of the boards and commissions without the committee of the whole standalone.
Support.
You move or?
That's fine, yes,
She sort of moved it. so-
Okay.
yes. So all those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, motion carries. And now we're down to, board and commission. Appointments. I am struggling with my agenda tonight and the internet. So I think that, we've discussed these, last week at committee of the whole. And I would, Fonda.
I just had wanted to make a pre-statement.
Mhm.
These are the ones that are more pressing, but we are still going to have a lengthier discussion about all of the committees in January.
If we kind of had that discussion last meeting, but these are, if you look at my memo, these are the main committees that board members are appointed to. And then I've tried to include the other ones that are the ad hoc. Thanks to Fonda, I did omit one, the election commission, which I had not had on there, but to the best of my knowledge, unless I've missed another one, these are all the appointments that are in my memo that board members are appointed to by this board.
But, and I'm not trying to take anything away from like the elections committee. I don't know if there's other people who would be interested in some of these. I don't know anything about that committee because it didn't come up in our discussion last week. So that's why I was saying maybe there's another conversation to be had. My understanding is that we were going to deal with these most immediate ones because their terms expired. And we need to get someone seated in those positions right away.
Okay, and so you're asking for, more discussion at a committee whole session in January?
To see if there's anybody else
You want an
interested in any of the
explanation of
others.
what the committees are and what they do?
Please. Thank you.
Would someone like to make the motion for those before you?
I do have a question though.
Yes, Dennis.
I'm looking at the this chart that's put out by, I believe, your office, Madam. And it shows that trustee Cascarella's term expires 2027, so I assume that's an error.
That I don't, well, I probably, did she just put this out? She might have updated it based on what's coming. This one's not ours. This one did not come from my office.
Okay.
I don't think with those.
I don't know. who
We don't
puts
do
this
the
up.
grid, so I don't know where. I'm assuming it came out of the manager's office then.
No, that's the one that you guys put out.
With the
got all
grid?
Stuff, yeah.
Okay, so I assume just that number's an error.
Is that for the ZBA?
That's, yeah. It's a ZBA,
Is it 28 or 27 then?
27,
It says 28 on the memo.
so.
Yeah, so I'll have Shay look at that. Yes.
And the other thing is it lists the board members at the top and it has our personal addresses and our personal phone numbers. Is that really necessary?
Or you can use the township if you prefer.
Yeah, I would prefer this. Rather than having our personal phone numbers and our
Well,
personal
you
addresses.
prefer it for you.
Right.
I'll
that's
take
what-
yours.
I don't have an objection to my Phone number being published.
It's your home address also.
I don't have an objection to either.
Okay. Beth,
I'll make the motion.
please do.
I move that the aforementioned persons be appointed to the township boards or commissions, and that the clerk is hereby directed to send notification to all of those selected, informing them of their appointment.
Support?
It's been moved and seconded to approve the ZBA appointment of trustee Cascarella, the E-Tran appointment of clerk Clark, and the Tri-County Regional Planning Commission appointment for trustee Bowen. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you all for serving. That's your.
Thank you.
Congratulations. Yeah, thank you.
And then our last item on the agenda is the COLA. So Karen, I guess, or Brian, I don't know who's speaking to that.
I discussed it last week and I was in favor for it. We've already signed the memo. We knew it was coming. We have an annual review also. So if we wanted to change it then, or if we want to make changes next year, we can also do that. But I was in support of this from the beginning. I didn't have an issue with that. That's all I have to say.
Is that a motion?
I can make the motion. I move that the Delta Township Board approve adjusting the annual compensation of the Township Board per the board compensation and benefits policy by 3% to be effective January 1st, 2025.
Is there support? No support. Motion dies for lack of support. And let me get back to the manager's report. Didn't you do that? Look at that. Agenda, do we have any?
Manager's report.
Oh, sorry, thank you. Brian.
Thank you, Madam Supervisor, board members. Just a couple things, speaking about committees and appointments. I was reappointed to the Michigan Municipal League Municipal Finance Committee. And I believe trustee Brewer and my deputy Aaron LaPere were both appointed to the Municipal Services Committee for the Michigan Municipal League. So we'll be bringing back information on different sort of study bills and give recommendations to the full MML board. I just wanted to again recognize the our first responders. It's been great having new Chief Eichner on board. Made a great difference, and folks over there have really like him. He brings a lot of a wealth of experience, so it's been great. Our new officers, also very good people, dedicated employees. It's a very tough job tonight. I know we would have had an even bigger crowd, but we had a serious vehicle pedestrian accident down on Canal that was not good earlier tonight, right before the board meeting, actually. So I apologize. I was on my phone quite a bit for getting updates on that. I just also wanted to recognize Battalion Chief Funk. As he mentioned, it was an unexpected retirement. We really will miss him. He's a loss to the organization, brought a lot of different skills. And he was a great leader. If you may remember our Forward and Better program to start hiring basic EMTs and send them to paramedic school. He was really instrumental in that. That was a time where we were 9 people down and we were not getting any applicants for paramedics because of the national shortage. And so with his leadership, we were able to work through some of those issues and get us to where we are today. So I really appreciate his service to the township and he will certainly be missed. I just wanted to recognize the board. I know that there's always some difficult issues, but I think our three projects that we approved today are really tremendous projects. As trustee Bowen mentioned, the Sharp Park project. We received that grant during COVID times, so it was delayed a couple years for to get a state contract, and then we dealt with the escalation, the cost escalation, and that type of thing. So I really appreciate the board's support on these projects because there's a lot of years of work in there. Ingenuity from our engineering and parks department to really stay with these projects and the perseverance. And it's nice to come out on the other side and have a lot of bids again. So that's a welcoming sign, and to be able to move forward with these projects, albeit at a, quite a bit more than what we had put in the grant for in 2019 or so. Same thing with Delta Center Cemetery. We master planned that many years ago, and that is a lot more complex of a project than what it looks like. So there's there's a lot of complexity in working in a cemetery and fixing that retaining wall and the fence. I specifically really like that project because when I interviewed here 10 years ago, that was one of the first things I mentioned, and thought that on day one, I'm gonna work to try to get that fixed. So,
Do you want your name on a plaque?
I don't want my name anywhere near the cemetery. And then the Willow Pepper Ridge project is a tremendous accomplishment. I just have to, give thanks to Representative Whitmer for that state appropriation, and that really solves a lot of different issues. And again, that was I really have to credit Rick and Jake and as you mentioned, Ernie for thinking through and their vision on that project. And then just the value engineering to make these two projects work together and be able to fit Pepper Ridge under that 10 million is really an accomplishment. So that's going to be a great project, and it's going to solve a lot of different problems moving forward. Not all of them, but on the west side, it really does allow several of our, pending projects to move through. So I just think it's a good time to recognize the board for their leadership on those issues, their patience, and always giving us the ability to go after these projects. And then our staff for their hard work, because some of these are kind of superfluous to a lot of the other things that we're doing right now. So I just really want to recognize everybody. If you could just stay active in the lame duck, try to get out updates, but I have trouble keeping up. So if you get the MTA or MML and stay active on some of these bills, because there are several that really affect municipalities. So it is certainly helpful to have you voice your support on those. Last week, just want to recognize two departments, our parks maintenance workers. When we had the weather event, did a great job. Showed up for work, and it was everything was clean, and they were on top of it. And then also want to recognize Rick's crew, our whole utilities department, for answering the call with 5 water main breaks in one day, which is not the highest amount we've ever had in one day, but pretty close to a pretty severe emergency situation. We had several people who worked throughout the night to restore water and get those fixed in really challenging conditions. So just again, a credit to all the good people that we have working for the township. So That is, that's my report, but happy to answer any questions.
Yes.
Well, thank you for that brief report, Manager Reed. You had the opportunity to address the press as a result of the GM announcement regarding the Ultium plant. And I'm just wondering if you could summarize that because, you know, there was a interest in how that affects Delta Township, you know, from a member of the audience. And if you could just summarize it for the board and the audience, it would be helpful.
Sure. To this point, most of the information that we have is the same that you can read about out in the public. So GM has sold the Ultium or sold their shares in the Ultium. So that will be Ultium was a combination of LG and GM. So LG will now own the plant. All indications are that they will produce batteries and will create the number of jobs that was expected. That's the information I have at this point. So as far as it affecting the township, it still remains to be seen. So the Ultium plant was under a Renaissance zone, so there's not any property tax implications with that. With our 425 agreement, we will begin to collect a portion of the city of Lansing income taxes from that plant, but that requires the job creation. So we'll be watching that closely. They are not on target for what their initial goal was, which was to be, you know, up and running and operational at the beginning of 2025, but they're still, they're getting close to that plant being finished. We are getting very close to, as we did have some closeouts today of some of our bid packs to service Ultium. We still have some infrastructure work left on that, but they are using water and they are completing the plant. But that Treasurer Fidoa is basically the extent of the information I have at this point. I don't have anything concrete about timelines or full operation or who they will be, who their main customers are or servicing out of that plant. But at this point, all the indications are, and the closing will be in March. So I'm imagining that will probably be about the time that we'll learn the most information.
All right, thank you.
Any other questions or comments?
Other than happy holidays, Merry Christmas to everyone.
Happy holidays to all of you. And with that, we are adjourned.
No bag of candy this year, Mary?
No, I lost my chocolate supplier. We did none. I know. It went out of business.